biggest NFL draft storylines to watch early in the football season. Multiple NFL teams will be watching the 2026 NFL draft quarterback class closely, and we'll tell you why.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an NFL draft analyst with Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Sanchez. He's the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with those LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. It's NFL draft storyline time, guys. The biggest offensive draft storyline, quarterbacks and the NFL teams that might be on the verge of changing the guard in their franchises. Defensive draft storylines. First of all, who's the best defender right now in this draft class? And then we're going to bring back an old one, but a good one, the Coach 'em Up segment. Coach K, Coach DP will be telling you guys what prospects you need to pay attention to that have upside, that have potential. Just got to tweak some things with them. But before that, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Offensive storylines, Keith, it's only been one week of the NFL, 2 weeks, essentially 3 if you count week 0 of college football. But my take is simple. There's going to be plenty of NFL teams that's going to be watching this quarterback class very closely with the magnifying glass, like the old school science stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, they're going to be watching very closely, Keith. Or you think about the old school way scouts will watch with the binoculars from the top of the stands. That's what we're going to have with this 2026 quarterback class, because when you look at what happened in week 1, there were some performances and that just weren't that riveting and thrilling for their teams, whether it was, especially when you look at that Colts-Dolphins game, Tua, and I mean, it just kind of is what it is. It's been a lot of stuff that's happened with Tua, from the injuries, with the concussions, to I think the hip injury popped up late last year and everything like that. And I'm gonna be honest, I think this is a team that we fast forward through the NFL season, we might see the head coach fired, we might see the GM fired before the season, or maybe at least by the end of the season. And going into the offseason, they're hiring an entire new front office, which typically means that front office wants to get their guy in at quarterback. And I don't believe Tua is going to be a fit for everybody, right? Like, he's a really good fit for McDaniels. He's not a fit for everyone. So I think that's the situation that you look at. Matthew Stafford played well, but that back is not going anywhere. He is close to 40. And he's got a back injury, and those nag, and those continue to nag. And even though he played well, I think the Rams will still be watching the quarterback situation for this draft, because if we have 6 or 7 good draftable quarterbacks, maybe all don't have first round grades, but if they're still drafting the mid first, late first, they can take that flyer and say, let's go get our franchise guy. And then in my neck of the woods, Keith, the Carolina Panthers, like Bryce Young had 3 turnovers. One was called, he would have had 4. One was called back off of it was a pick 6 that he shoveled past and the defender jumped it and everything. I don't know what's going on in Carolina, but this is year 4? 3, right? This is year 3.
Mm-hmm.
This is year 3 for him. We can't, we wanted to see you start the way you finished last year. We didn't see that. So I think when you look at around the NFL, these NFL teams are going to be looking at the Garrett Nussmeyers, the Lenore Sellers, if he declares. A lot of them probably praying for the bloodlines of Arch Manning to declare. They're watching this quarterback class, Keith.
Yeah, no, I mean, they have to, right? And those teams are probably praying that this quarterback class turns around, right? Because we talked about it in documented, right? You're talking about Cade Klubnik. Well, a lot of people were saying he was QB1. Right now, he's looking like QB. Who knows, right?
Whatever number.
Lenore Sellers having to take that next step, right? Drew Aller, we talked about, I think, in our watch the tape.
Watch Wednesday, yeah.
Watch the tape Wednesday show. So they're definitely keeping a detailed eye on this quarterback class, because I think I think it's gonna be a lot of teams, DP. And usually this is the beginning of it, right? But think about the Minnesota Vikings, right? At this point, well, not even this point, but even a few weeks into the season, Sam Darnold was playing lights out, right? And then they still made a move at quarterback, decided to go with J.J. McCarthy. They didn't draft him, but they still moved on from a new quarterback, right? The Geno Smith in Seattle situation transpired, right? To where they ended up drafting a quarterback in Jalen Milroe. They signed Sam Darnold, but they still drafted a quarterback. So we still have so much shakeup that from week 1 to week 10, there's going to be a totally different picture. There's still some teams that we think are going to be good that are not going to be good, and they might throw their hat in the QB market, right? And you mentioned, Bryce Young with the Carolina Panthers. That can be a very interesting situation to where they may just want to sever ties and be like, you know what, it's done, and it may be best for both sides, right? So I agree with you with that. I'm going to go with this, DP, offensive draft storylines. We seen, I don't want to call it mediocre offense, but I think we've seen some average offensive play, right? I think there were only 2 quarterbacks in the NFL that threw over 300 yards, and maybe 3 or 4 that threw over like 250, 275 or something, right? And I'm going to go this. We need some more playmakers, man. We need some more playmakers, some more wide receivers. And this is the draft to find the wide receivers. When you look at the Chris Bells from Louisville, the Jacoby Lanes, the Jordan Tysons, the Zachariah Branches, the Antonio Williams, like this could potentially, especially with the way this draft class is rounding out, could this be a record number of wide receivers that get taken in this draft class? Because just paying attention in this draft space, you see different people have different players at wide receiver 1, right? I think Jordan Tyson is probably the most consistent, but you talk to some people, it's Jacoby Lane. Some people really like Antonio Williams, right? Like there are different things that you can kind of swap in and swap out. And you got Malachi Fields at Notre Dame, who we both like as a good wide receiver. So I look at the offensive draft storylines. I think that the trend is, hey, we're trending to more drafting some playmakers. And we had some guys, that retired. And like the Amari Cooper retired. DeAndre Hopkins, he had the great catch, but we know like he kind of on his last leg with the, just in his career. So I'm looking at that and saying it could be some playmakers in a key spot. You mentioned it. And I'm saying, what if they blow the whole thing up, right? The Miami Dolphins. And meaning that
trading
Tyreek Hill, right? And then they go get another wide receiver and probably get somebody that's different from Jalen Waddle, right? Keep Jalen Waddle, get a bigger bodied wide receiver, like we said, Jacoby Lane, or potentially Jordan Tyson or something like that to be a complimentary piece and really hit the reset button, just over there in Miami.
No, I think that's a really good call, Keith. I mean, even when you look at like a Denzel Boston and Washington,
I forgot about Denzel Boston.
Yeah, like and it's
a lot of them.
I'll say to back your take. I'll add something to it, Keith. I think this wide receiver class could look like or be this year's version of last year's running back class, where you had so many backs, where you had the top end guys like Omari Hampton, Ashton Genty. Then we had 2 off the board in like the first 5 picks of the second round. At Ohio State,
Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, and then it was R.J. Hart. Like it just rolled.
R.J. Hart was in the second round. Then you got Caleb Johnson in the third. You got Dylan Sampson in like the 4th round.
Jarquez Hunter. Yep.
Ham Scatterboot. Like I think this is a class. Well, even from a wide receiver standpoint, like I tweeted about them. I think it was yesterday, Keith. Might have been yesterday, 2 days ago. Out of Illinois, I think when we even talked about it last week, when we previewed week 2 and we talked about the Duke game and Darian Mensah going against Illinois, is like Illinois is always a good team and they always somehow have a under the radar wide receiver. Well, his name is Hank Beatty, who's a slot receiver. And if he was able to have that 4.4 speed, he would probably, my comp for him would probably be Ladd McConkey. But since he doesn't have that, he probably has more like 4.5. He's fallen into that Hunter Renfrow, Danny Amendola type of comp, where slot receiver, reliable punt returner, strong hands, all of that. And it's like this wide receiver class, in my opinion, whatever your flavor is, you can find it. If you need the gadget guy, there's a couple of those in here. If you need the guy that's the big body, the 6'2", 6'3", Jacoby Lane, Denzel Boston, those guys are in here. You need that guy that could kind of make that movement Z slot role that gives you run after catch. You got Mekhi Lemon, also out of USC. This wide receiver class has a little bit of everything. And again, going back to the summer, when people were tweeting out this wide receiver class wasn't good, I don't know where that came from. You know what I mean? I don't know where the thought came from. We all evaluate differently, but this wide receiver class is good. It's got a lot of talent and upside.
Yep, I agree with DP. Let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. And we're going to talk about defensive draft storyline, right? So we just switching sides of the football, right? We're going to have the same conversation, but base it off of the defensive prospects. We're going to base it off of the NFL this past week. What are some trends we're seeing? We're going to talk about that coming up next.
Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every single model. You can feel and you can make everyday drives just feel like anything, but from smooth handling to intuitive controls with all-wheel drive standard in every single crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season of weather. So like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. So Mazda, move and be moved. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. The grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5HEWin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Master Tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. Defensive draft storylines, Keith. I think for me, the question I have is more so, who's the best defender in the NFL draft space for 2026 right now, right? I think we coming into the season, I think we both had Peter Woods at 1.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson right now, and the way that their coordinators are playing, they're hurting everybody's draft stock. You know what I mean? When we say coaching matters, it matters. If you're not putting your guys in the right positions, don't get me wrong, Peter Woods is still look good. He is still, like, against the run, he's still been fantastic. It's just they haven't got many pass rush opportunities when you're playing soft zone and teams can just throw screens and get the ball out their hands quickly. You look at TJ Parker, same thing. Really good against the run. Haven't had many opportunities to really get after the quarterback. So you look at this situation, Keith, and I think it might be by default, it's Caleb Downs.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's I was going to say Caleb. And to be completely honest, I think it's a combination of both, DP. Because as I'm diving deeper into the film with some of these prospects, right? It's because how do I explain this? We know that the draft stock and it shouldn't be that, right? But some of it is tied to narrative and storyline, right? And so I agree with you. 2 of the top 5 to 7 draft prospects at this point, or defensive draft prospects, I'm sorry, is Peter Woods and TJ Parker, right? But that's like some of their draft stock will be tied to Clemson's success. That's just what it is and how it is, right? You know, with this and selling narratives and things like that when it comes to draft time. So I look at it and I say, okay, are those guys going to be able to finish towards the top, right? And like you said, both of those guys are good. I think Peter Woods is better than TJ Parker.
For sure.
I think TJ Parker is good. I'm trying to figure out if I think he's great yet, right?
Right.
If he's turning that corner, but for his sake, if he doesn't have the benefit of being a 10-11 win team, winning the ACC and things like that, you start to drop down the board a little bit, right? Because talent evaluators don't think, okay, what is your true impact on this team? Yeah. So I look at Caleb Downs just in a vacuum, throwing out position. I told you, and I'll say it and I keep saying it, he reminds me of Jamal Adams, right? Sitting there at LSU, watching him time and time, it's the same exact thing. Triggering from 12 yards, heat-seeking missiles, blowing people up, great against the defense, high leaders, They talk a lot. They're vocal, like just carbon copies of each other. Like, and I feel like they're probably carbon copies personality wise. Also,
Yeah.
just the whole entire thing. So I'm going Caleb Downs, and to the listeners, right, the brother of Josh Downs. Like, and
Yeah.
because I think it's
They got
crazy enough.
podcasts.
Yeah, not a lot of people talk about that. That's his
No, they
brother.
don't.
Like, people don't
That's
talk about it at all. And I just realized it a couple months ago. 'Cause I was like, it's almost too easy that I think people pass it up. And maybe it's because they play two totally different positions,
two totally
right?
different positions.
Like,
Yeah.
one is a slot wide receiver and one is a safety, right? But I
Safety.
guess, you know what? Thinking about it, they're probably made for some good one-on-ones, right? Like,
Absolutely.
they got after it in one-on-ones. So
Iron sharpen iron.
I'm gonna definitely go Caleb Downs with that one.
Yeah, I'm going Caleb as well. I think he, his instincts, the way he impacts the game, and again, like we said, coaching matters. Defense coordinator lets him be him, and you know what I mean. Where it's like robbing the mesh concepts, the end breakers, to playing in the nickel and being a force defender against the run off the edge. He does blitzing the quarterback. He literally does everything, man. I think now the key. I say this, and I think I've like, granted. Week 1, I didn't really pick. I mean, he had another sack, I think, in week 2, but I didn't even care. He played Bethune-Cookman. I was like, you better go out there and get a sack against Bethune-Cookman. But it's Ruben Bain. Like, that's the guy I think has a chance.
Yeah.
When you look at just the edge rush situation in the NFL, yeah, teams needing to get past. I mean, the not even the elephant in the room, the low-hanging fruit, the Dallas Cowboys. You know what I'm saying? Like, you need an edge rush after you just traded away your best one.
I was about to say it's not low hand. That's a big elephant too. A big, loud, angry elephant, right? Stumping around. And the elephant might be called Jerry Jones, right?
Jalen Hurts had like 4. I think his time to throw in the pocket last week in week 1 was like over 3 seconds. Now, granted, he can move, but it's like he didn't have to really move. It's just like you couldn't get to him. Yeah. It's like, well, you know what could have helped you? The guy in Green Bay right now.
Yeah, and the thing is, they have an elephant, but you know what? They needed a lion, right? They needed somebody fast, nimble, hunting, and Michael Parsons just sitting there in Green Bay.
Ask Jared Goff. Ask Jared Goff about that sack. He's trying to run from that lion in the wilderness. But I think Ruben Bain has a chance to take. If Peter Woods and TJ Parker, who are two true juniors as well, if they're not able to take that step forward, Caleb is going to still be Caleb, right? Yeah. But nothing, because while we're talking about, positional value at the window, the NFL is going to be like, man, Ruben Bain is 6'3", 275. I can wide nine him. I can do all these different things from a passer standpoint. He's a dominant player against the run. He showcased the dominance if everything holds true from the first 2 weeks of the season for him. If he plays, I don't know if you saw, like, there was a post from his Instagram story. Before they played Notre Dame, he had a notebook where he wrote explicitives, like explicitive Notre Dame. Explicit.
I did see
Jeremiah Love. And then I just was reading it and I was like, yeah, he's wired a little different. You know what I mean? Like, so you telling me you're sitting in class doing this? Like, all right, cool. You know what I mean? You just wired just a little differently, big dog. And if that's the case, I love it. But I think he's the guy that could be nipping at the heels of a Caleb Downs if his season continues, especially through the ACC. He keeps playing well, stuff like that. Like, Carson Beck is going to get a lot of fanfare because he's a quarterback. But this young man can be dominant. And if he stays that way, we're looking at a top 3 to top 2 pick in this class if the team doesn't need a quarterback.
No, I believe in that too. And like you said, we talked about the Peter Woods, the TJ Parkers. Mateo Uiagalelei has yet to have like a true test, right?
Yeah, he's been dominant against the small schools, but that test hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, and Ruben, I would say, I'm trying to do a quick scan real quick, but what initially pops in my mind, he's probably been the fastest rising draft prospect. Like I think he's the guy that's made the leaps and bounds, and not only from a projection standpoint, DP, but from what his floor was, right? Because we talked about with him, and it's like, he kind of sits in that tweener mode, right? Is he an edge rusher, interior defensive lineman? I think through the first 2 weeks, especially in Notre Dame, he answered the question like, I can do both at a high level. And that's a really good answer for Ruben Payne overall. And like I said, the question marks that I have in my notebook, I'm starting to erase them and put down check marks, right?
Yeah,
And be like, okay, like this guy can definitely become, just one of the better edge defenders in this draft class. And then it's like, okay, about how high can he go now, just overall.
Absolutely.
But DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. I said DP. I mean Coach DP. Coach DP, Coach K. We make an appearance. We picking a draft prospect. We are telling the NFL. We are telling the coaches. We are telling the GMs. This guy has all the tools. Just coach him up. So we're going to talk about that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. This NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 back in bonus bets to use freely across the app. Again, right now, new customers can bet just only $5, $5, guys. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 back in bonus bets to use freely across the app. I'm talking about using it for player props, building same game parlays, and even jumping into the live action. So are you ready to play is my question. If so, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. Again, are you ready to play? If so, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout for being our everydayers. Coach K, Coach DP, letting the NFL know this is a player you could have on your team. You just need to help him out with a couple things. Keith, you mentioned him earlier, and this is a guy I like coming off of the summer, late in the summer, right before the season. I finally got eyes on him and everything. And this Louisville wide receiver, Chris Bell.
Yeah.
And for me, with Chris Bell, this is like he's listed as 6'2", 220 on the season so far right now. 9 catches, 146 yards, 1 touchdown, but he's averaging over 16 yards per catch. And I believe it might have been what's the game? Week 2. I think it was JMU. They played JMU. He had 4 for 83. And his one big play his touchdown was a 64-yard catch and run. I think it might have been like a slant or something. It was a quick underneath route. He caught it and then got upfield in a hurry. And you saw the breakaway speed, the long speed. Again, at 6'3", 220 pounds. What I want to coach him up on is catching. He's not a natural hands guy to me. Mm-hmm. He had some double catches. Even that catch, the touchdown that I'm talking about, he had to double catch it and reel it in. He didn't just like catch it, secure it, and go. Like in the NFL, it's a game of inches, it's a game of milliseconds, right? And double catching the pass over the middle could result in you getting your head taken off in the NFL. You know what I mean? So I think for him, granted, again, he's 220 pounds. I think this is a young man that like could legitimately be a steal in this draft because he gives you the vertical, like be able to go the go routes, the post routes, stuff like that, the quick hitches, the slants, mesh. He can work all 3 levels, but it's his ability after the catch what can make him a special player or a really talented NFL player. He just got to start bringing in passes a little bit more comfortably and confidently. You get him on the jugs machine, work with him in that regard, get those hands a little bit more secure. You got yourself a bona fide wide receiver who can play the X, the Z, or be a power slot for you. And with that versatility, I want that guy like that on my team.
Yeah, no, and listen, I in my first mock draft, so the mock draft a couple weeks ago at the Draft Network, I think it was week 1, heading into week 1. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was heading into week 1. I was like, should I do it? Should I not do it? Should I do it? You know what? I'm doing it, right? And I put him in the back end of the mock draft. I think I put him to the Buffalo Bills, right? Just being another piece. Like, and I think him, the combination of him, Keon Coleman, and Khalil Shakir could be a good little trio for Josh Allen. But I like this guy from the physicality standpoint has it all, right? Like he's like, man, like just like you said, that's 6'2", 220, and he runs with power, right? It's about getting the football in his hands and kind of just watching out. And you know who I think about too?
I'm about to say I had one too. He reminded me of Anquan Bolden a little bit. I don't put that on him, but he kind of reminded me of Anquan.
Yeah, and I was gonna say I think he's a little bit faster than Anquan. I don't know if you
Yeah,
agree or
for
not.
sure.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
he's a
yeah.
little bit faster, but it reminds me of early when we kind of discovered Xavier Leggett. And we
Yep,
looked
yep.
at Xavier and was like, hey, this is a big boy that can move,
Mhm.
right? And
Move.
then remember Xavier too had and it showed in NFL also, right?
Yeah.
Like the kind of double catching, he had to refine his hands, but the
Mhm.
physical profile was hard to overlook as far as if this guy gets on the right track. And I think you had that comp, right? Was it Xavier
Yeah.
Leggett to like AJ Brown or
Yeah, AJ
something like
Brown.
that?
Yeah.
Like he can be in that mode, and we know that those big physical wide receivers, especially those explosive guys that have the start-stop ability to accelerate, decelerate, they can be very special players. So
Yeah.
that's how I'm kind of looking at it overall. With Chris Bell, I think he can be exciting.
No, 100%. Yeah, that because as you were getting ready to give your comp, I
Hmm.
was sitting there thinking I was like 6'3", 220, the physicality, the running after catch. I was like, he doesn't like to be tackled by the first offender. Like,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like he runs when he gets the ball in his hand, like because he's also surprisingly nimble and agile
That's what I'm
to kind
saying.
of
Yeah.
like the two-step you and spin off of a guy
Can't.
and stuff like that. I saw not. I mean, Anquan didn't do all that. Anquan just ran through you and
Yeah.
stiff arm people. You know what I mean? But I can see some of the shades of Anquan in this game.
Yeah, I could see this. I think at this point, right, and obviously we have more season to play, and we'll revisit this conversation. But at this point, a couple weeks in, and based off his last year's film, I feel comfortable with setting the baseline at that he can at the very bottom be a Debo Samuel-esque type player, right? Like
Yeah.
that big physical
Mhm.
bruising, jet sweep, handoffs, because
Yeah.
he fits the mold, and you usually don't do this with guys at 6'2", 220, but he's so nimble and agile for his size that it's like, let's just find a way to get the ball in his hands, right?
DJ
And get
Moore.
us.
That's
Yeah,
another one.
that is another one. I actually don't mind
Another
that
one.
one too. That's not a bad one too. So I agree with that. DP, I'm gonna go. You said DJ Moore. I'm going Derek Moore, and we talked about Derek Moore a
Mm,
couple weeks ago. And I just there's something about this young man that I really just want to buy into, right?
yeah.
Just like I said, the athletic profile, the physical profile, and the sacks have been minimal over the past few years. I'm excited to see him as getting full reign, and it's because he's been playing behind guys, right?
Behind guys.
Michigan had an edge rusher. I'm blanking on his name, but he had an edge rusher last year that went in the third round, right? And then
Josiah Stewart.
yeah, Josiah Stewart. I'm sorry. And I think did
Yeah.
he wind up going to the Rams too? I believe he went to the Rams. So they
Yeah.
have a thing for 6'2", 230-pound, 240-pound edge rushers.
They got a
They have,
type.
yeah, they
They got
have
a type.
Byron Young over there too, which both guys I like.
Yeah,
Both
same.
guys I think are very talented. But yeah, I look at Derek Moore and I think there's so much upside with this young man. That if it doesn't happen at Michigan, it's like, hey, in the NFL, we could develop this guy to really get home consistently.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm watching him a lot this year, and especially once you get in the Big Ten play and that,
Hmm.
of course, the game against Ohio State. Like, we don't know what Julian Sand is going to look like by the time we get there. Like, maybe he's a much more confident player because, I'm not saying he'll be CJ Stroud, but I remember CJ Stroud started his first year as a starter slow. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
He started slow. He faced off against what was it, Minnesota on the road, and people were calling for go get Quinn because Quinn was hurt. I think he was still at Ohio State. He was like, go get the Jet and go get Quinn. And I was like, fast forward a couple years later, you're like, never mind, we're good with CJ. Like, we were happy with CJ. It was like, yeah,
Hmm.
give him, like, his first game was on the road at night with Julian saying his first start was against Texas. Even though it was at home, it's still against Texas. Like, this is a legit team with legit NFL prospects. He might be the guy by the time Michigan sees him. But if not, and he's not really a fan of pressure, Derek Moore, that's your opportunity. That's your draft game to go out there and harass that young quarterback and make him make the mistakes and throw the ball into your secondary, man. So definitely a guy that I think, just continue to work out because, again, to your point, Keith, not playing a lot, like, it's hard to have a rush plan and different things like that when you're not used to creating one as a full-time starter. You're like, okay, I'm more rotational, things like I'm the guy. I'm the dude. So it's like, now can you start putting your imprint on this defense? I'll be keeping my eye on him all season.
Yeah, I'm gonna name one more guy real quick, DP. I'm a double dip here.
All right.
And is a name that I haven't heard a lot about yet. From Tennessee, Joshua Josephs. I like
He
this
defensive
young.
line.
Yeah, edge rusher. He's
Edge.
another
Okay.
edge rusher. He's listed at 6'3", 240 pounds. Natural mover, DP. Not explosive as Byron Young in the past, but probably closer to James Pierce as, and I'm gonna say this, closer to entering last year, James Pierce, how we felt, right?
Yeah.
A good athlete, fluid, nimble type of situation. James Pierce at that last kind of stretch kind of added that explosive first step to it, right?
Mhm.
Joshua has more of that nimble fluidity to his game that I really appreciate, and he's a good athlete. So he's a guy that I kind of documented as I like him. Let's see if
Yeah.
I could turn the page to being like this a dude, especially in this draft class. I want to throw him out too, as far as he could be a potential coach him up guy overall. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listener is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Guys, coming up on tomorrow's show, it's Friday. So you already know what we do on Fridays. Make a statement on the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, and then those sleeper 2026 NFL draft prospects to watch as we preview week 3 of college football on tomorrow's show. So join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.